Larry, all we care about, of course, is our buddy Tesla and Elon and all that, but the rest of the world seem to be very concerned today about NVIDIA. And I know that you do have a sampling of
Oh, no, I closed my position yesterday.
oh, you closed your position yesterday.
Yeah,
Well, it's up 5% in the after hours.
we'll see.
We will see. Okay. I don't think either one of us have had a chance to listen to the earnings call because I don't think it happened or it's happening now or whatever. But they seem to come out okay. They seem to think everything was doing well except for the China situation. But so why did you happen to close out?
Historically, the stock has declined after earnings report. Not, not a huge amount, but it has declined. Well, it's down points. No, that's not in the after hours. After hours is up nicely. Yeah, so I didn't want to. I mean, it was a call. It was a limited time call.
Got it. Got it.
So, that was
And
the safe thing to do.
and you'd made money, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So that really takes me into that's a perfect segue. Absolutely perfect. I don't know how you did that because Gary Black sold off all his Tesla today, and that's the big news on X. That's what everybody's talking about. He says he's worried about the robotaxi rollout. He's worried about low sales and margins. He's worried that the Model Q will just be a stripped down version of the Model Y and or the 3, and he's worried about an outsized PE ratio. So, Larry, since you just sold off your NVIDIA for a specific reason, I was thinking maybe it'd be fun if you could steel man Gary's decision today.
Yeah, I mean, I think on every count, he's wrong. But Gary has been right in the past. From time to time, he gets his call right. I mean, he really did foretell the decline in the auto market for Tesla.
Right,
And he has been, beating the drum on Tesla building a less expensive vehicle.
right.
Um, so I don't want to underestimate, some of his calls. And, famously back at the all-time high, he sold
Mm.
a portion of his stock. So, I mean, I don't want to denigrate his decision making. I think he's wrong in this particular case. I think he's wrong on several counts. The most important of which is that he says that everybody will have, robotaxis. That may even come to pass, not as quickly as he imagines, but it's going to be a little bit late for most of the vehicle manufacturers, if not very late for most of the vehicle manufacturers. But more tellingly and more importantly, um, it's going to be very difficult for them to compete with a robotaxi. Very, very difficult. Simply because the cost of the competitive vehicle is going to be extremely high. High because of the suite of sensors and compute power that goes with it, and high because of the support that will I mean, it may be okay for auto manufacturers that have dealerships everywhere, but the cost of managing that fleet, the cost of servicing that fleet, more importantly, is going to be very, very high. Um, Tesla is in a pole position in terms of timing, in terms of cost of capital, and in terms of distribution. And on those three, I mean, I can talk at length on each of those subjects. But I don't want to, do that here. It's not the right appropriate forum, but I think he's wrong on that count. I think Tesla has an opportunity, a very clear opportunity, to become easily the leader in the field. this is going to be a winner takes most market,
Mm-hmm.
just as Uber was the winner that took most of the uh, driver-based, ride share. They invented ride share, and they took the business away from the taxi cab business, which was the reasons for that is pretty clear. But the rideshare business is very different, certainly in the United States, Europe, um, and many parts of Asia. The rideshare is different. For example, I'm thinking particularly in Japan.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now, once you get to India and China and much of the third world, African, Asia countries, cost of wages is dramatically lower. But nonetheless, the vehicle cost of the cyber cab puts Tesla in an excellent position. Now, we do know that there are much, much cheaper electric cars, even than Cybercab
Right.
in China. So the chances of people buying the Cybercab for home use, is marginal, but it's possible. But yeah, so those are the considerations. So for the European market and the US market, I really do expect, and for most of the like upper tier countries, I expect, other than China, I expect Tesla to be the winner, take most.
Right. Right. So when we look at uh, go off of Gary Black for a minute and we look at Cathie Wood. So ARK Invest also trimmed their position. Now, this is normal.
Mhm.
We see Cathie Wood trimming her position all the time. When she gets up around 13, 14%, she commonly
Right.
trims back. And she used to trim back to under 10%, but I've noticed lately she commonly only trims back to maybe 12 or 11%. But
Yeah,
this,
they have a very, very high, threshold for their shares of Tesla because their conviction is very high right
right.
now.
So the question I had today, though, was it seemed to me to be an odd time. Even if you're sitting on 14%, which is higher than you like, it just seemed like an odd time going into what I'm calling the most important, most likely profitable, the highest profit ever for any service or product that's ever been released in history. Going into the very month when that's going to happen, it just seemed like an odd time for her to be trimming. What do you think?
No, I think that once she gets to those levels, she is, under, you know, look, when you're running a public fund,
Mhm.
you can't make those kinds of decisions. You're not, it's not given to you to make those kinds of decisions. You have to follow policy, and the stock is getting, up there, and so it's driving her
Mhm.
price up there. So I think she's locked into it, And look, they have Tesla in almost every one of their funds.
Right, right.
So I don't I don't see it as a questionable decision. It's very difficult to put yourself, if you haven't done it before, it's
Mhm.
very difficult to put yourself into the place of a manager of a public fund or a public, yeah, or even a public company. I mean, I had this whole debate with Brad Ferguson yesterday on X. I don't know if you saw it. Brad was talking about Tesla going in and trading their stock, trimming when it got very high,
Yes, yes.
and buying when it got very low. And I said, you can't do that. You just cannot do that. There are, the laws are so tough, and you don't want to commit a single foot fault in that situation. And then when you run public money in a fund,
Hmm.
there is no foot fault.
Yeah,
It is
yeah,
like
yeah.
you step over the line and Zhang, you risk your entire business and sometimes your freedom. So I'm not surprised.
So AJ also said he was trimming. He didn't say how much he was trimming, but he said he was trimming slightly because he felt that the valuation was a bit out there. So that caused me to kind of think about, I'm looking at Kathy with her trim, Gary getting out of the stock entirely for now, AJ trimming a little bit. AJ made it clear he's still a big bull, etc.
Mhm.
Last night, Nicholas Gibbs on my program was saying that he's a big bull and he is in it, but that he might trim some of his leaps when we get over 400, 420, somewhere in that range. So, Larry, given where we are right now, from where you sit, how do you see the I know how I think everybody that watches my channel knows how I feel. It's like I'm in it. I'm in it until it's $1,000 or $1,500, and maybe beyond, and maybe well beyond that. I have no plans on trimming or doing anything else. But maybe stepping back and just being as a professional. You run a family shop, or they call it. How do you see it if you look at it in a kind of a less emotional, more professional way?
I don't really look at the price of Tesla from day to day. I I have bought Tesla on a fairly strong conviction that the future for Tesla is extremely bright. And I don't do like some do that, calculate to the third decimal place what the price should be on a fairly specific date. I am fairly convinced that this is a stock that my family will hold for a long time. And I don't give it a time scale. So as long as the company is run by Elon Musk, as long as Elon Musk is active and focused, I'm going to pursue the stock. I'm going to hold the stock, I should say.
Yeah.
And so the price from day to day really doesn't mean that much to me. Look, sometimes I take a speculative position, completely independent of my main holding. And that is simply because I see some perturbation in the marketplace. But that's it. So I'm the wrong guy to ask. I'm absolutely the wrong guy to
Well,
ask.
maybe you are the right guy to ask if I ask it a different way. So, since you sometimes take a speculative move in a
Yeah,
market whatever that word was. Anyway,
perturbation.
I've heard
Yeah.
it before, but I don't know if I can say it. Larry, is this would be a potential for one of those things to be true. So, on the apparently the 12th of June, we have this new information today. Instead of the first, on the 12th, we're going to roll this baby out. Wouldn't that be a potential either FOMO going in or potential long term, if it's successful, on the first week, we might see quite a run up.
The operative word you've used is if it's success, if in the sentence, if it's successful, and you are the perennial and eternal optimist. So in your judgment, the if turns into, oh, it's going to be successful, and therefore the stock's going to go up. I'm not the perpetual optimist. I'm sitting here thinking, well, the Wall Street Journal is going to report it's a disaster, and somebody's going to scratch a tire on a curb and it'll be written up in the NHTS, the NHTSA will get involved. All I can tell you is that the downside more than balances off the upside. Look, it's a small, 12 cars, first day. Who knows how many cars will go out? Who knows what will happen? And if if the tire scratches, if the car touches the skirt of a person passing, all hell's going to break loose. So I think we have as much opportunity for a downside as we have for an upside. I don't see this as like a turbocharged catalyst and the stock goes bananas. And I'm not prepared to take the chance that that happens. Now, you could do a straddle. You could buy a short, you can buy a short, and you can buy a long and play it, that way. But frankly, I don't see the value in doing that. I bought the stock because I know this is going to be a winner takes most situation, as I've talked about. I've also bought the stock because I know that the Optimus is going to be a,
Right.
fantastic product. I bought the stock because the semi is going to be rolling out next year. It's going to be a fantastic product. I bought the stock because I really believe that the storage technology that Tesla have are going to be undergirding a huge growth in the coming year. And that's good enough for me. And I don't have to leverage my investment any further than that.
So Elon's been talking about wanting to have a terawatt of energy all to himself, that he would be producing and storing, I assume. There's a lot of speculation right now that he must have something in mind. And I've been talking about this to everybody over the last 4 or 5 days, and we all seem to feel like the only thing that makes sense would be some kind of a solar effort. Do you think that there might be some kind of a major solar effort, or do you think it'll be something else, or do you think that there's nothing to the production side of this equation?
No, there's a lot to the production side,
Okay.
and it's not trivial. A terawatt of energy production is staggeringly
Staggering.
ambitious.
Yes.
Not if you're in China,
Right.
not if you're in China, but it's not even the capital. And people kept on at me about buying back stock, buying back stock, buying back stock. And thank God we didn't buy back any stock, because a terawatt is going to cost a lot of money, and a terawatt is going to take, all of Tesla's companies putting their chips down, all of them. So, and of course, the ones with the most capital are Tesla, XAI, and Tesla, SpaceX, and XAI, roughly in that order.
Right.
And so, yeah, I mean, there's no doubt. There is absolutely no doubt in my mind that 36 billion or whatever it is now is going to rapidly be used. So that's why I think that Tesla is going to play a big role in building it up. Look, if you just look at the size of Cortex-2, you just look at the size of Cortex-2, you begin to understand that Tesla's going to need a lot of money to get that thing built and powered up. So, yeah.
So, but you have no speculation as to whether it'll be solar or whether maybe he's going to buy 𝐤𝐚𝐽𝐝𝐻, the SMR company,
Well, there are
or
quite a few SMR companies,
right.
not one. There's quite a few.
Oh, I know there's like maybe 10 or 12. Now you
Yeah.
you haven't been willing to share yet the
No.
ones that you're the most excited about, but
I'm not willing to share because I haven't finished doing the work.
I see.
But I am excited. There are some companies that have excited me, and I'm doing the work. That who's going to win this battle is not just a question of who's got the best technology. And that's one of the difficulties. And it may be strategic to invest in multiples of them. But I'm invested in Elon. So in a way, I think I've got a sort of,
You're covered.
I don't know about that, but yeah. Look, a terawatt of energy in the United States is going to take enormous force of will, and it's going to require a lot of investment, and it's going to require enormous technical, effort and a bureaucratic effort. So there's a lot of work to be done.
So just for fun, staying on the SMR subject, because it's something that I spend a lot of time on this channel talking about, and maybe later tonight I'll be asking Brian Wang rather, for his updates. But in the last 24 hours, 𝐤𝐚𝐲 did say that they think they will have a deployment by 2027, end of 2027, early 2028. But General Electric turned around and said they won't have their first deployment till 3030 or 3031.
Yeah.
So I thought that was interesting. Typical small, fast-moving company versus General Electric.
To think that General Electric actually is the company, a successor company too, but was the company that started the electric revolution in the United States.
Yeah, right.
I mean, it used to have Edison's name attached to it.
Yes, right.
Or at least should have had Edison's name attached to it. But his company was one of the, founding components of General Electric.
Right. So switching to the general economy, last night, Nick also said that he was concerned about the equity markets at this point because the PE is out there further than it's ever been before. And he felt there were underlying data that's starting to add up in a little bit in ways that he thinks might make it hard for the profits to keep up with those PEs. Hewlett Packard just announced, and they said that they're going to be hit by the tariffs. Their earnings were today, and they said the tariffs are impacting their earnings. What are you thinking about the
Are impacting or will impact?
Will impact, did and will, yes, yeah. Mostly on the capital side, mostly on their capital expense side. So what I'm seeing in general, Larry, so far,
When you say capital expense, you mean capital investment?
Capital, yeah.
Capital is not an expense.
Okay, capital investment, yes.
Yeah, capital investment doesn't necessarily leach into profitability.
Not necessarily. I think what they're referring to, I did read the article. I think they're mostly referring to they're moving a lot of what they're doing out of China into Vietnam, Indonesia, et cetera. So they're spending a lot of money to make that move. And usually that is, it's a capital expense, and yet it might be they're probably having to take some of that, in the current year.
Look, tariffs are going to have multiple different impacts. It's not necessarily clear that it's going to have a impact across all corporates. I think the bigger risk to corporates is interest rates, and the bigger, the most important issue for us is going to be, the public's willingness to spend money, and that's going to be important. It's really hard to tell what the impact's going to be. I mean, I do know that, collections have been pretty damn good, and so that's not a bad thing. I'm not alarmed yet at multiples PEs. I'm not alarmed. I'm keeping a beady eye on it, but I'm not alarmed.
Okay.
At least not in the companies I'm dealing with.
Right. Okay. So yeah. Let's see here. Elon and at least a few Republicans in the Senate are not happy with the big, beautiful bill right now. Trump has not publicly criticized it. Elon did.
No, in fact, he praised it today.
Oh, he praised it today. I didn't see that.
Yeah, he did. He didn't criticize Elon, but what he said in off the cuff remarks in some answering some question. Every event that he goes to, he turns into a press event.
Right.
But and I think it was today, but I heard him say, look, we're doing what we have to do to get it through. It has to be, we have to pass it. It's very important. Otherwise, it's not that we can save the money that Elon wants to save at the he didn't mention Elon by name, but the question referenced Elon's unhappiness. He said, look, it's a matter of, he used the realism card.
Mm-hmm.
He said that what he's trying to avoid is a tax increase, because
Mm-hmm.
if they do nothing, then taxes are going to increase by the biggest tax increase in history, he called it. In dollar terms, it's quite possible that he's right. So I think that he is politically realistic at the moment. He's not prepared. He doesn't think getting down into the trenches to fight the fight at this point is important. I did listen to, what was the senator that was on? Scott was
Johnson's been
Johnson. I did listen to Johnson's rant on the All-In pod, and he made a lot of sense. But Trump doesn't think he can get that through. So I think that I think that Congress really needs to do the work and do what Johnson's calling for. I think it's the right thing to do. But the president, has to govern, and having to govern is a really tough thing when you only have one vote in each of the houses, or two votes in one house, one vote in the other house, and you have to get it through. So,
is it your understanding that after we pass the big, beautiful bill that you can do a separate rescission bill that would incorporate the Doge cuts, and that would also only require 51 votes?
yeah, rescission, I think, can be done. You know what? I don't know the answer as to whether once you've got a budget but rescission means I'm taking back. So why can't you not do it after you passed a budget? There's no reason not to. But you don't have to do it immediately. You could do it in June, July timeframe.
Right. Yeah. So that's kind of what I'm thinking, maybe that they're contemplating, is that they will get this budget through. Of course, he's got, he's going to have to twist some arms at this point, because I think they've got 6 Republicans that are claiming they're going to vote no. But I suspect if anybody can twist an arm, it would be Trump at this point.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible, but the only way to twist the arm is to have one's arm twisted back, because you have to give something to get something.
Right.
So they're going to have to make some commitments at the end of the day. And without those commitments, they're not going to get what they're looking to get. So it's a really, classic political fracas at the end of every one of these events. So there you go.
Not atypical. All right. Well, Larry, we've come to the end of my list. I don't know if there was anything else you had on your list, and it's too early to look at the pre-market. So I was going to, unless you have more to talk about, I was going to put us on pause and do the pre-market before I post this. Anything else out there that's been creating interest in your thought processes around Tesla or the overall market?
No, I think it's an interesting time for us, and I'm pretty excited for forthcoming, month of excitement.
Yeah, no kidding. Definitely going to be that. All right. Well, we'll see you on Friday as usual. And thanks again for joining us. And for all of you out there, I will now just take a pause and come back with the numbers in a few minutes. So there continues to be a lot of speculation around this June 12th launch date, including Holmar's blog posting a little while ago that there are already now existing vehicles that are being tested with no drivers in the Austin area. So that's, again, I would call this a solid rumor from a solid source, but there was no, he didn't give a source for that. Or as one wag put it in the comments, no pictures, it didn't happen. So we don't have any pictures of that. We don't have any sourcing on that, but it's It just happened a few minutes ago. So how did things end up today in terms of the numbers? Well, we're of course still in the pre-market stage here at 12:14 in Hawaii, 3:14 in California, or 6:14 in New York. We have almost recovered on Tesla. We've almost recovered all of the slight downturn today in the market. We're back up 1.23% in the pre-market, back to 361.30. Obviously, this is a very solid location to be in. If it turns out that the launch is not until June 12th, however, I am going to beg for another extension on my all-time high to 2 weeks after that, to the 26th. I want 2 weeks after the launch as my date, which I'm expecting the all-time high. If not, again, it could be as early as the 12th. Because of the FOMO, if we get a solid date, we get an announcement, great clarity on the specific date, that might be a little bit of why FOMO has not happened so far, as we didn't have more clarity. We also had, of course, as mentioned earlier with Larry, we've got a couple of folks selling some stock today, some people that many people admire, and that could have caused people to just take just a hesitation moment. But NVIDIA doing very, very well in the after hours after their report. That I think will bode well for the markets, as we'll see in a second. We'll take a look at the pre-markets there. And NVIDIA right now in the after hours market is at 4.29% up to $140.52. All right, let's go ahead and look at the rest of the markets. Let's go into the bonds first. So bonds ended regular trading today down just a tad after being up. So that was a real good turnaround. We ended up down 0.4 basis point at 4.475. So that's good. Now, of course, it's an hour, 45 minutes from now before we get into today's trading or tonight's after hours trading, pre-market trading, whatever you want to call it. But good that it turned around today from having yields having gone up to having gone down just a little bit. Oil sitting at 61.84 where it closed, and Brent also around where it closed. So not a lot of action there. No action at all in natural gas. Gold down $10 now. I think last time I checked, gold this morning it was down 30 cents or something. So not a lot of action in gold or silver today. Silver sitting at $33. And copper, same thing, sitting at $4.60, basically 68 cents. So no real action there. Dollar, very thin action here in the after hours. Bitcoin down 2,534 for the day. So that's a pretty active day, 107,326. So running into some resistance at those new highs. And then we have the pre-market. So the pre-market right now is the Nasdaq. Primarily, I would say on the strength of NVIDIA is up 128.25. So that bears very well, very likely that we're going to see an up market in the morning, barring any specific news overnight. That's up 0.60 for the Nasdaq. S&P futures up 0.31. The Dow is down just slightly, down 0.02 for the day. Not for the day, for the pre-market. So I looked into the NVIDIA call. I didn't listen to the whole call, just looked into some of the summary information. And basically, there was nothing in there that we didn't already know, as Jensen, of course, has been on stage a couple of times just in the last week. Now, I understand he's being interviewed by CNBC this afternoon as well. I'll try to catch that and maybe report on that later with Brian Wang. Now, if Brian Wang doesn't show up, and it's entirely possible, I'm not guaranteeing that he can make it because he said he might not be able to. If he doesn't, I'll be soloing again tonight. And in my solo commentaries, I will definitely tell you what I've learned about NVIDIA. I'm also trying to dig a little deeper on SMRs. I think you should be. I don't care if you never want to play any SMR stocks, I do believe that we on this channel should be paying attention to the SMRs. It's going to be a huge impact on the overall economy, definitely on the AI economy. Definitely, I think it will impact Tesla's future. With Larry and I talking earlier about what will Tesla do, I don't right now, and I'm going to ask Brian this, whether it's tonight or tomorrow, I'm going to ask Brian this. How can Tesla get to 1 terawatt of energy production without solar? I think I believe the only answer, if at least if they intend to do it in the next even decade, I think even if his goal would be to get to 1 terawatt in a decade, I think the only solution right now on the production side would be solar, unless maybe he wants to buy one of the bigger players or a couple of the bigger players in the nuclear spots. Okay, that's all I got for you right now. It's been great, as always, talking to you. And see you later, hopefully with Brian Wang. Got to find the right button here to turn off the video.